Welcome back, dear friends. Uh, Today we are going to deliver the third lecture of the series Religion and the Medieval Indian Rulers. Till the other day, when we discussed this particular issue in the second lecture, uh, we discussed up till the Sultanate period, and we ended with how the Firoz Shah Tughlaq is supposed to be one of the very rabidly religious type of a personality who discriminated against both Hindus and the Shias. And in the end, as I tried to point out to you, that in fact, most of such information of discrimination of his being anti-Hindu, anti-Shia, are derived from a manuscript Futuhat Firoz Shahi, which actually was in the form of epigraphs on the inner side of the dome of the Jama Masjid of Firoz Shah Kotla. And as I tried to argue there, that a particular point of view which would have satisfied the theologies of the age were inscribed on that, and it was later on the same epigraph which was there once on the walls of the Jama Masjid was copied as a text and became a manuscript from which such type of information was drawn. We also, at the end, referred to the fact that during the 16th century, when 16th century started, the dynasties which were ruling, the post Tughlaq dynasties which were ruling over northern India, the Sayyids, the Lodis, they were those who started recruitment of the non-Muslims uh, to a very high level, so much so that we know that one of the first revolts against the rule of Akbar was by a person who had served the Afghan dynasty. Today, let us discuss what was happening after the establishment of the Mughal rule in India. But before we start with the Mughal Empire, let me point out that 16th century was a period when uh, three or four dynasties, major dynasties, came to establish their rule. The first of them, although technically not belonging to the 16th century, they had been there since the 14th century, no, not 14th, but 15th century. The Ottomans, Ottoman Empire was established sometime around 1400 something in the region of Turkey and Anatolia. Uh, that was the region where they were ruling, and by 16th century they emerged as a powerful entity, controlling almost the whole of the northern parts of Asia up till Europe. The second dynasty, which came to be established during this period, in fact, with the very start of the 16th century in 1501, was the Safavid Empire, which was established by Shah Ismail Safavi. Uh, the Safavids established themselves in the region of Iran and Khorasan. Uh, Apart from the Safavids in Central Asia, there was another very important group, dynasty, which emerged, the Uzbek Khanate Empire. In fact, you would remember that Shaybani Khan was one of those who was defeating Babur again and again in Central Asia. He also had direct skirmishes and clashes with the Safavids. So the Uzbek Khanate Empire in the region of Samarkand and Bukhara, that was the territory where the Uzbek Khanate Empire was established. And of course, in 1526, Babur was able to establish the Mughal Empire in the northern plains of India, of the Indian subcontinent. Now, starting from the Ottomans down to the Mughals, all these dynasties had certain things which were very common to them. For example, all these dynasties were ethnically and basically Turks in their origin. The Ottomans were the Turks, even the Safavids. The Safavids, in fact, were a Sufi silsila, a Turkish Sufi silsila, Turkish speaking Sufi silsila. They were able to um, make their empire in the Iranian lands. They were ruling over Iran, but themselves were Turkish in origin. Later on, in fact, the whole of Iran under the Safavids turned into a Shia. The Uzbek Khan's empire, Shaybani Khan and company, they were also Turks. The Uzbeks were Turks, as you know. And as far as the Mughals were concerned, the Mughals too were Turkish in origin. In fact, as once I told you in the class, that had someone told Babur that he's a Mughal, he would have got angry. He considered himself to be a Turk. Or to be more exact, he took pride in the fact that he was one of those Turks who was a Timurid. He was also soft towards the Mongols, because after all, he was related to the Mongols from his mother's side. But he always took pride in the fact, and he always thought that it was the Mongols who were very uncouth. And just like the Ottomans, just like the Uzbeks, and just like the Safavids themselves, the Mughals too were followers of the Iranian culture. Although their mother tongue was Persian, mother tongue was Turkish, but Persian was the language of the literate. And this was so in all these four dynasties. And this meant that the Persian culture was dominating over all these empires, especially the Mughal Empire. They spoke Persian, they wrote in Persian. Most of the literature which all these dynasties were exposed to was in Persian. And lastly, all these empires were of those who had converted to Islam. They were all Muslim dynasties, so to say. So culturally, linguistically, All of them were Persian, ethnically, they were Turks, by religion, all of them were Muslims. Now, among all these empires which had been established, and the Mughals, there was one major difference. All these empires had been founded in territories which were predominantly Muslim. I mean, I am using the term predominantly because you remember that the Ottoman Empire also had a sizable Christian population, especially in the region of Anatolia. They had a large number of, Christian subjects under them. But as far as the Safavids were concerned, or the Uzbek Khanates were concerned, they were all 100%, or you can say not 100%, 90% you can say, that the populace over which they were governing were Muslims, culturally, religiously, and otherwise. It were only the Mughals who were ruling over a territory where Islam was in a minority. The Muslims were only very few. If you take out the percentage, possibly at that time, not more than 5, 6%, 8% were Muslims, and that too among the ruling elites. As far as the general masses were concerned, the whole of the Indian subcontinent was predominantly non-Muslim. Now, this would bring a constraint up over the Mughals. The Ottomans could very successfully claim themselves to be the Khalifas. Although they had a sizable Christian population, but still the majority were the Muslims, the Sunni Muslims, and the Ottoman rulers very easily took up the title of Khalifa. In fact, they replaced the once mighty Abbasid Khalifas who now were no more. And the Ottoman Empire, the Caliphate, Ottoman Caliphate as it is known, emerged as one of the most powerful Muslim rules. The Safavids, on the other hand, were ruling over a population who was vastly Shias, Isna Asharis. So they could always take up the leadership of the Shia community. Unlike the Sunni world, the Safavids could never take up the title of Imam or a Khalifa. There was no concept of a Khalifa among the Shias. And as far as the office of the Imamat was concerned, according to the predominant group of Shias, the Isna Asharis, who were there in Iran, as the name suggests, Isna Ashar, the 12ers, there could only be 12 Imams. The 12th Imam had already been born, he was hidden, and would appear at the end of the world. So there was no vacancy as far as the Imamhood was concerned. The Safavid ruler could never call himself as the Imam. The next best thing was that the Safavid ruler claimed himself to be one of the supporters of the Imam, the assistants of the Imam, the ruler who would implement the orders of the Imam. The Safavid ruler was a Sufi. They were not theologians. So they could not be the jurisconsult. They could not be the mujtahid. But they could be those who ruled on behalf of the Imam. And it was, incidentally, you should know that during the Safavid period, a new type of philosophy started getting established among the Shias. I mean, there were two schools. Uh, uh, the Usuli fiqh. Uh, I'm not going into this is not the time to discuss all that. But Usulism, the rule of the jurisconsult, the authority of the theologian, the authority of the person who derives the power from the Imam, was getting established under the Safavids. It was to influence even the Indian Shias later on. We'll come to that in some other lecture. Now, unlike the Safavids who took up the leadership of the Shia community, unlike the Ottomans who took up the leadership of the Sunnis, Akbar or any other Mughal ruler could never take up the position of the Khalifa or any position of religious leadership. लेके करते भी क्या कितने लोग थे जो उनकी सुनते majority were those who were not Muslims, who were not concerned whether you call yourself as the Imam or the Khalifa or the Prophet or whatever you want to call yourself, call it. For them, there would be no issue at all. And they would not be concerned in any way. So the situation in India, how to deal with religion, how to tackle the various religions in the country, was a different problem as far as the Mughals were concerned. As I said, that Muslims were in a fraction. They were generally town-based, elites, migrants, some who had been settled in the country earlier, and of course some who had been converted. Akbar, as we would see, did try to dabble with such a problem, with such an issue. But as is expected, the general population was least affected with these things, and there was a different type of policy towards religion which was needed and which was ultimately followed by all the Mughals. Whether it was Babur who came to India or Akbar who established the empire. In fact, such a policy continued to a large degree, with some variations here and there, up till the period of, you can say, Aurangzeb. Now, for Babur, generally it is believed जो व्हाट्सएप यूनिवर्सिटी पे जो ग्रुप शेयर्स होते हैं और जो पोस्ट्स होती हैं और जो एक जनरल जो बातें कही जाती हैं without reading the actual past, that Babur was those who came here to establish Islam. In fact, a large number of papers have also been written on this topic, trying to argue that Babur was, in fact, a mujahid, a person who came to wage war, religious war in the country. Just as was the case with Sultan Mahmud, he was also a Butshikan, a person who came to break the idols, kill the non-Muslims, demolish temples. Who amongst us do not remember the famous Babri Masjid of Ayodhya? The whole agitation which took place, the whole propaganda which was circulated. There was a time when it appeared that as if Babur had no other job but to construct a masjid out of an old temple. Incidentally, let me also inform that the Ayodhya mosque was not a mosque constructed by Babur himself. Whether on a temple or not on a temple, that's another issue. But Babur was actually never involved in anything to do with this mosque. It was a mosque which was constructed by one of his commanders, Mir Baqi. Probably it was in 1529, at a time when the Mughal army sent by Babur was passing through Ayodhya under the command of Mir Baqi, that this mosque was constructed. The inscription on the top of the mosque was also, there were in fact two inscriptions which claimed that it was constructed by Mir Baqi, who was one of the commanders leading the army of Babur during this period. The only authentic mosque of Babur still survives. That is today. Now there are other few mosques here and there. For example, there is a mosque in the district Aligarh where I am sitting. Pilakhna. There was another mosque, because now that the mosque is not there, but we do get an inscription of Babur, of a mosque existing there once, Jalali, very near to Aligarh. Firozabad, a number of places here and there. reports keep on coming कि यहाँ भी बाबरी मस्जिद है, वहाँ भी बाबरी मस्जिद है. But rest assured, all these mosques which are attributed to Babur are those which were built during his period, at a time when he was here, sometime between 1527 to 1530. But their existence, Babur was probably not even aware about. Now, a reading of Babur Nama, and you know what Babur Nama is? It is the autobiography of Babur, a self account of Babur, a self story of Babur. It's not an account of his government, it is not an account of his conquest, it is not a gazetteer about India. It is just his own personal story, an autobiography. And in that autobiography, his own personal likes and dislikes have been mentioned. अगर आपको मुझे समझना है, मेरी पर्सनालिटी को समझना है, तो मेरी राइटिंग से बेहतर कोई और काम नहीं हो सकता जिसके थ्रू आप मेरे जहन को समझ सकें. ठीक है, बहुत सी ऐसी चीजें हैं जो मेरे खिलाफ होंगी, जो नेगेटिव्स होंगे, मैं अपने बारे में नहीं बताऊंगा. हर चीज को मैं थोड़ा सा सॉफ्ट करके या लॉडेटरी अंदाज में बयान करूंगा, लेकिन किन चीजों पर मैं ध्यान दे रहा हूं, किन चीजों को मान रहा हूं, किन चीजों को नहीं मान रहा हूं, उसका बेस्ट सोर्स ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन मेरी अपनी राइटिंग होगी. Now, in Babarnama, there are in fact 3 sections. One, now this lecture is not about Babarnama, but to derive a point, I have to tell you something. The first section deals with the period of life of Babur when he was in Central Asia, Fargana, Samarkand, what he was doing there, what type of buildings existed there, what he was interested in, what was he doing, his personal wars, his conquests and defeats, they are all mentioned there. In the second part is a description of the period when Babur became the king of Kabul. So it's about the region of Afghanistan. How he ruled, what he did, what type of people, what he constructed, what he destroyed, what he did. Personal है ना? Whom he met, whom he feted, किसके साथ पार्टी मनाई, कौन आया, कौन गया, so on and so forth. And the last section, remember, जो हिंदुस्तान का बाबर है वो अपने जिंदगी के आखिरी के 3 साल, टोटल 4 साल भी नहीं. Panipat happened in 1526. And by December 1530, he was already dead. So it is, his stay in India is 3 years and a few months, not 4 years. तो आखिरी जो सेक्शन है बाबरनामे का, it is concerning his rule in Hindustan. And if you pay attention to all these 3 sections, you would find a person who was more interested in making gardens than in constructing mosques. In fact, शायद एक या दो mosques का जिक्र मिलता है जो उसने बनवाए थे. एक हमारे लिए pertinent है, one of the mosques which he says was constructed in 1526 after the Battle of Panipat as a form of thanksgiving. The Kabuli Bagh Mosque. Now, even here, where he constructed a mosque, but along with the mosque, there is much emphasis which is given in his account on the well, the Bauli, the stepwell, and the garden in the middle of which the mosque was built. Remember that Babur introduced a Chahar Bagh, the concept of the Chahar Bagh in India. Where is he buried after his? When he died, his body was temporarily placed in a garden constructed by him. If you read his account of what he constructed at Agra, the city which he had conquered after the Battle of Kanwa, 1527, the Lodi fort was, in fact, moderated, changed, new structures were added. But if you read the account, you would come to know, Babur tells कि बहुत बुरी यहाँ की कंडीशन थी, बड़े यहाँ के ऊपर ऊंची नीची खंडराली जमीन थी, there was no running water, nothing. So what I did was that I constructed a series of gardens. In fact, if you read the book on Agra by Abakosh, where the emphasis is on the Taj, she tries to interpret that Agra emerged as a riverfront city. Large number of gardens were constructed. And this process started under Babur. कोई मस्जिद नहीं बनवाई वहां. In the previous lecture, when I was citing Richard Eaton, I told you that there was a practice that when a dynasty would conquer the first dynasty, the deities of the conqueror would be replacing the deities of the conquered. तो जैसे पानीपत में इन्होंने एक मस्जिद गार्डन के बीच बनवाई थी, आगरे में भी तो अब तो बाकायदा लोधी सुल्तान को no evidence, even archaeologically, if you look at Agra, there is a step well which belongs to his period, and then a garden. At Khanwa also, after the battle of Khanwa, when Rana Sanga was defeated, बाबर क्या बनवा रहा है थैंक्सगिविंग में? बाग-ए-फत, a victory garden with a Bavli stepwell. And during the course of my surveys at Fatehpur Sikri, I was able to find the physical remains of both the Bavli and the garden which I have given in my book. So whether it was the battlefield of Khanwa where near which Sikri was located, where a garden was laid out, a well was dug, or ultimately the conquest of Agra after the Battle of Khanwa, when the Lodi fort was turned into a Mughal fort. We don't hear of any mosques being constructed. We hear of gardens being laid out. And what type of person was Babur? If you read his account, he was a poet, a man of literature. He was a literature, in fact. He was a man who knew Turkish, a man who wrote a diary. He was a writer par excellence, constructor of gardens, a person who liked his wine, a person who informs us time and again in his account that he was an opium addict, a person doing almost everything which is proscribed by Islam. Babur was a Ghazi, but in a secular sense of the term. He came to India on the invitation of Rana Sanga. He defeated Sikandar Lodi. Now, if you read Baburnama also contains a few documents. For example, there are two documents which are drafted by Sheikh Zain, his Sadr. One is a Farman, which is issued before Khanwa, and the other, a Fatahnama, issued after the victory. In both these documents, religion is being invoked. When the fight is against Rana Sanga, Sheikh Zain writes that it is a jihad which is to be fought against a kafir. Invocation of these terms are there. कि काफिर है जिसके खिलाफ जंग हो रही है, हमको मुत्तहिद होकर लड़ना है. On the basis of which some people claim that in fact Babur was waging a religious war. But then Sheikh Zain also writes, which is a part of the Baburnama, that at the Battle of Khanwa, Babur was opposed by a confederacy of 10 kuffars, plural of kafir. 10 काफिर थे चीफ, जिन्होंने बाबर को अपोज किया था, सामने खड़े हुए थे. It's an army, the army of the kafirs. And that is what a large number of people believe in. But try to read what Sheikh Zain is writing. He also gives you the names of these persons who came at the Battle of Khanwa under the leadership of Rana Sangram Singh, Rana Sanga, to oppose Babur. They included Hasan Khan Mewati. Hasan Khan Mewati came to the battlefield along with 10,000 Muslim Mewati soldiers. Apart from Hasan Khan Mewati, another chieftain who was along with Rana Sanga opposing Babur was Sultan Mahmud, the son of Ibrahim Lodi. Was Sheikh Zain not knowing that both Hasan Khan Mewati and Hasan Khan Sur were Muslims? Did both these people convert to Hinduism? That Sheikh Zain mentions them as kuffar? No. Sheikh Zain very well knew that they are Muslims. Babur knew that they are Muslims. अरे भाई बाबर को ये तो मालूम था ना. Abdul Quddus Gangohi, one of the Sufi saints, very famous Sufi saints of the period, who actually belonged to the region of Rudoli, had migrated from the Rudoli region to the region of Agra. Why? Because his own particular region, jahan the, that had come under the rule of a Rajput chieftain. And how could he perform his prayers there? And thus he had taken shelter under a Muslim king. And when Babur attacked Ibrahim Lodi, Abdul Quddus Gangohi was there along with, behind the forces of Ibrahim Lodi at Panipat. Gangohi was a very lone, जो नमाज नहीं पढ़ सकते थे अगर उस रीजन में हिंदुओं की हुकूमत हो गई थी. ऐसे मुसलमान थे. इब्राहिम लोदी के साथ थे. और जब इब्राहिम लोदी को हराया, बाबर ने जब कैदियों को जमा किया, तो वन ऑफ द प्रिजनर्स वाज अब्दुल कुद्दूस गंगोही with all his beard and all his ubba jubba. No concession was given to him. Babur knew that he is a Muslim. Just like Babur knew that Hasan Khan Mewati was a Muslim. Mahmud was a Muslim. But Babur was not concerned with their religions. He was not here to wage a religious war. He was opposing the, according to Babur, the legitimate king. And all those who oppose the legitimate king, they are kafir. All those who fight for the legitimacy of the rightful king, they are ghazi. Don't you remember that in 1857, when the mutiny broke, all the accounts of the mutiny period, they mention Rani Lakshmi Bai and Tatya Tope as ghazis, as mujahids. Both of them were Hindus. The mutiny of 1857 was not a religious war. अल्लाह मियाँ के नहीं लड़ी जा रही थी. तांतिया तोपे रानी झांसी मुसलमान नहीं थे, जिहाद नहीं लड़ रहे थे, but they are mujahid. Why? Because they were fighting for the legitimate king, Bahadur Shah Zafar. They were fighting against the enemy, the British. So by this time, these religious terms had been appropriated. You must remember, all those who attended my lecture, I also told you that when during the reign of Alauddin Khilji, when some of the Amils went to the Khanqa of Nizamuddin Aulia to collect the revenues, what did he ask Nizamuddin Aulia? Jizya be de ya karamat be numa? Either give jizya or please show us a miracle. भाई अगर सूफी हैं, आप बहुत पढ़े पहुंचे हुए आदमी हैं, मौजूदा दिखाते हैं, तो अगर मौजूदा दिखा दीजिए तो कोई टैक्स नहीं लिया जाएगा, आपको सलाम करके चले जाएंगे, हाथ पैर चूम कर. और नहीं दिखाते, जिजिया भी दे, जिजिया दे दीजिए. Now here the term jizya, क्या did this Amil did not know that Nizamuddin Aulia is a Muslim, a Sufi, well-known Sufi? Did he confuse Nizamuddin Aulia to be a non-Muslim? No. Jizya by this term, just like Kharaj, had been secularized. The term was being used in the form of revenue. एक और एग्जाम्पल आपको दे देता हूं, क्लास में दिया हुआ है मैंने, फॉर ऑल दोज हु वर नॉट इन द क्लास, दैट व्हेन नादिर शाह इन्वेडेड इंडिया, व्हाट डज ही कॉल द मुगल एम्परर एंड हिज नोबिलिटी? हिंदुआने कलमा गो. All those Hindus who also recite kalma. You know, these are the terms. आप पे से जो हिस्ट्री के स्टूडेंट है, you know what rank has taught you. The words keep on changing their meaning. As simple as that. So Babur was not a mujahid in the sense of a religious soldier. He was just a king who was fighting for his rights, and anyone who opposed him was a kafir. And any war which he was fighting for his legitimacy, that was a jihad. It was not a religious war. So remember that even Babur, the founder of the Mughal Empire, was nothing but a ruler who had come here to found his government. And he was a person who applied every method to percolate his rule. Remember, friends, we are talking about प्री मॉडर्न टाइम्स। आजकल की जो डेफिनेशंस हैं, आजकल के जो मीनिंग्स हैं, उनको आप पिछली सेंचुरीज पे रिफ्लेक्ट मत कीजिए। आज जब हम कोई टर्म यूज करते हैं उसका डिफरेंट सेंस है, बनिस्बत उसके कि जो जिस सेंस में बाबर के जमाने में या अलाउद्दीन के जमाने में उन अल्फाज को इन चीजों के लिए यूज किया गया था। ये अल्फाज अपने माने बदलते रहते हैं, सेंस बदलते रहते हैं। अगर आजकल के माने आप उस पर ढूंढने चलेंगे, you will fall into a pit. I'm not saying that all these Mughal rulers or all these kings of the past, they were secular in the sense as we understand the term today. No, they were not. They were all persons who believed in their religion. They were all, let me say, Muslim kings. But they were kings and nothing more. ये एक चीज है जो मैं क्लास में बार बार हर सेशन में रिपीट करता हूं, और उसी पे आज का इस लेक्चर को मैं खत्म करूंगा। Kingship knows no kinship, and kingship has no religion. बादशाहत का कोई रिश्ता नहीं होता और बादशाहत का कोई मजहब नहीं होता, सिर्फ बादशाहत होती है। So with this, we end today's lecture, and hopefully tomorrow or whenever the internet allows me, we would deal with the period of Babur, of Akbar, Jahangir, and Shah Jahan. It is only after that I have completed these that we would come back to Aurangzeb. आखिर में आप सबको आज रामनवमी की बहुत बहुत मुबारकबाद। घर पे रहिए, अपने त्योहार मनाइए, खुश रहिए, और जो हम लोग आपको ये मटेरियल देने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं उसको पढ़िए और इन दिनों को वेस्ट मत जाने दीजिए। अनफॉर्चुनेट है कि आप लोग से क्लास पे नहीं मुलाकात हो रही, लेकिन फॉर्चुनेट ये है कि इस वजह से बहुत से और लोगों से मुलाकात हो रही है जिनसे वर्चुअली मैं रोज इन लेक्चर्स के थ्रू कनेक्ट हो पा रहा हूँ। थैंक यू वेरी मच।